Good morning, everyone. This is Gabby, and today we are going to be learning the way I do comparables. This has nothing to do with RPR or IMAP and any other services that it may be out there. I don't say that I don't look at them, but most of the times I like to be more hands-on when doing my own comparables. And the way I do it is before I have a listing presentation, I do it myself. Like I'm going to go into the MLS and I'm going to look into all the properties that have sold in the last 180 days. If there are no properties, that's a tough situation. If there are no properties that have sold in the last 180 days, sometimes I might have to look into a little far away. Sometimes I go 200 days, and it's really annoying when you had to go 250 days. Now, I also don't rely on MLS only because there are a lot of properties that sold off the MLS. So you had to go into the public record website. Like, for example, in Broward, you had to go into Broward County Appraisal. If you had to go into Miami, it's the Miami-Dade property search, and so on. So I do like the two things at the same time. And I always like to have my two monitors available. So I'm on the MLS, and the other one, I have the public records or the Google and different things like that. So I'm going to tell you about my most recent transaction where I successfully listed it at a price, and that's what we got. Even though a lot of people were telling me that I was a little bit crazy and blah blah blah. I'm gonna share that with you and what I did it that way. So the first thing that I would do, the first thing I'm gonna do, and this is all the things that I have compiled along my career, asking questions to appraisers, asking during an appraiser. I always ask many different questions. I let the appraiser do their job, and then I kind of like interview him. We have also had opportunities when we invite appraisers here at the office, and I learn from there. But the first thing I do is I'm going to look at what the appraisers do look. And what they do is they start with the zip code. Okay, that's your first thing. Then square feet, property square feet. No, the total. No, this one is the under air. Because the other one includes basically garage and all of those things. I use the square feet, the living, meaning under air. Then I do the bedrooms, the bath, because that's crucial. Okay. Then I look into the lot size. That's another important thing. Okay. So remember, bedrooms, baths, square feet, lot size, zip code. Now, it's important also to keep in mind that sometimes there are zip codes that belongs to two different cities. And that's very important. For example, 33324, that is Plantation, but it's also Davie. So because of the city, the schools can change, right? And some schools may be better in one zip code on one city than the other one. So that also it gets in consideration whenever appraising. So you need to know the city exactly. So in this case, we're gonna start with that. So I'm gonna go, like, for example, I'm gonna go into, let's say I'm meeting with a customer for a single family home. I'm gonna do single family. And I'm going to be removing this one that says active with contract, coming soon, inactive. Okay. So you never, can somebody please close that door if you don't mind? Somebody, please. Thank you. I never, please, never use an active, never use a coming soon, never use an active or contract. You cannot use that. And that's something that the majority of times you had to tell your sellers. The reason is because you meet with a seller and the seller says, oh, well, but my neighbor is selling their home for 500,000. Or I know there's a house that it's pending and it's going to be closing soon. And that doesn't count. That doesn't matter. You don't include that. So remove all of these that come as a default. Okay. And you select the closed ones. Okay. Just a closed one. Let me see. How can I remove that? Okay. The closed ones, because at the end of the day, that is with the, are you guys seeing the presentation? Are you seeing the MLS when I'm doing it or no?
Yes, yes, Gabby.
Yes.
Okay, okay, I just want to be sure.
Sí, Gaby.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah, sometimes I'm freaking out. Okay. So we're gonna do closed ones. And this is how I'll start. I'm gonna start with 180 because 180 days, because that's what the appraisers has said, that they look into the last 6 months. They start with the last 6 months, but sometimes they might go a little far. Now,
I have a question. I'm sorry to interrupt.
mhm.
I thought that to look into the properties, they will look at the 0 to 90 days, 3 months. When
No.
that is used, it's 6
No,
months now.
it has been 6 months forever.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
no worries. So single family, because it's a single family. I'm not even going to go into waterfront or pool, none of that. We're going to leave that for later. I just want to first know what's there based on the rooms and the bathrooms and everything else. Let's say my client's house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And then I'm not going to even add the garage yet. And I'm going to tell you later why. My zip code. This is how I'm going to start my search. Okay, so close properties, type of property, zip code, 3 bedrooms, 2 bath. And immediately I'm going to scroll down to see how many properties is showing me, right? I see 47 matches. Okay, that's not bad. And then now is when I'm going to plug in the garage amounts. And I'm going to put, let's say my clients is Stu, right? And that's giving me 37. That's a good number. So I'm going to leave it like that. Then I'm going to click into the 37. And I'm going to look into the properties. The first thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to go into this top right here that says lot square feet, and I'm going to click there. Why? Because I want to see the size lot of my clients. And that is the reason why is because the lot size and the living area is what truly determines a price of a property. And of course, the upgrades. But that's how the appraisers start, because you can have, for example, you can compare a 4,000 square feet lot of a house, 500,000, and then a 15,000 square feet lot and the same 4,000 house, right? So that's why you start. So let's say my comparable is about 15,000 square feet lot, 17,000. That's going to be a little bit tricky just because you know that something above 10,000 lot, it's a big home or it's a big property. So because let's say mine or yours is a 15,000 square feet lot, I'm going to click here again. And I'm going to have all the ones that are going to be similar to 15,000, 14,000, and so on. Now, immediately, you're going to notice that there are not too many properties that have a big size lot. So sometimes it can be a little bit of challenge, but at the same time, it's better, it's good because you know that you don't have too many comparables to look, right? It makes sense what I'm saying? So it's good and bad. It's good because you don't have to work too much because you're only gonna have a few. So for example, in this case, I have like 3 different properties that are like kind of similar. Let's say my client says 15,000 square feet, okay, for the lot. So you have this one, this one, this one. Now, another thing that can help you is to look into subdivision. You can click on subdivision and it's going to put everything in one single place. So see, for example, it's going to put it like alphabetic, which is good. Now, for example, in Coral Springs, you have Deer Run Springs, and then you have Chevy Chase that are similar communities with similar lots. Can I use these as comparables? Yes, you can, because they are in the same, because sometimes people say, well, but it's not the same community. I understand, but it's the same zip code, it's similar, same city, and a similar lot. So yes, you can use that. Don't think that appraisers are not going to use other neighborhoods. If they are similar, they will. Sometimes appraisers may go up to a mile or 2 miles away to find a comparable of their property if they're not able to find something that it's similar, if there's nothing has been sold in the last 180 days. So in this case, let's say, for example, see the difference in this home and this other home that sold $20,000, the difference? Well, because this one, it's a little over 2,500, 2,600 square feet lot. So that is, why the other one, of course, is expensive. Now, it's important, the upgrades of a house, and not only the upgrades, but it's also important, to take a list of all the things that your listing has. For example, your listing has pool, water view, impact windows, brand new roof, and different upgrades inside the house. Now, don't think that because your seller tells you, well, I just, install a pool, build a pool from scratch, and I spend 100,000. Don't believe for any minute that the appraiser is going to give them 100,000 for the pool. No, that's never going to happen. There's a rule of thumb about how to evaluate different things in a property. And it's funny because things have increased in price, but those things haven't. So it's like, when you report taxes, and if you make less than 600, you don't get a 1099. Well, those things haven't changed. So let's say, for example, an appraiser, you can ask them whenever you have an appraiser and you attend an appraiser, ask them, so how much more or less for a pool? They will tell you, well, for a pool, depends on the size of the pool. Depends of the how new the pool is. I remember an appraiser saying to me that if a pool is like 20-something years old, they may give you 0 for the pool. If they notice that the pool needs like let's say it's 30 years old and it needs like new diamond brights and stuff, they may not give you anything for the pool. So it's scary, right? But that's how it is. If they see that if the property is waterfront, do you get a credit for the waterfront? Yes, you do. But it depends of what the appraiser said, the body of the water, the size of the body of the water. So if you, let's say, for example, your property, it's in Miramar, and are you seeing my, the people on Zoom, are you seeing my Google?
Yes,
Okay. So like, for example, thank you, Carmelo. So it's the depending on the size of the water. If there's a small canal, well, the waters don't move. I mean, don't expect that you're gonna get a lot of money for that. But like, for example, many years ago, I sold the house in Miramar, and also one in Pembroke Pines that are like the same. And they have a humongous lakes in there, like big ones, you know. So things like this. See the difference? It doesn't look very big, but see how this house on the left, do you think they can look into their neighbor's house across? No, right? So when you have a situation like this, it's like a mini ocean in there. So for this, an appraiser can give you a little more. So let's say a body of water, it can be between 7,000 to 25,000. What do you think this could be? It could be 25,000, because this is the privacy in between you and your neighbor. You know, you need binoculars to see them, right? And that's how it is. But now, how about here? See, it's not the same. So those are the things that you need to recognize whenever you're taking a listing. When your client says, "Oh, but my house is waterfront," you know, okay, but here, and don't get me started. How about here? See, you're sitting in your pool, and you can see. That's why these people put all these trees, right? For a reason. So they're blocking their water view. So it's not like an appealing water view, because they don't want to be seen. They want privacy. So in situations like canals like this, it may be 7,000 that you add up. In situations like bigger, like this other one that we saw, well, that could be 20,000. And the appraisers value pools around the same amount, 20,000. They don't care if you tell them that your client spent 100,000 a pool. They're not going to give them 100,000. Just want you to know. So after that, let's say you have your, let's change here to multi-row to see all of the listings, single line. You go in single
excuse me,
line.
Gabby.
Yes.
One
Camilo.
of the, yeah, going back to the waterfronts. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of newbies out there, but if you go into cities that are on the coast and that waterfront happens to have no bridges and ocean access, that lot that could be a postage stamp is now worth $2 million just because of that ocean access waterfront.
Absolutely. And that is something that the appraiser is going to look into. If somebody is selling a house, let's say, I had a house that I sold in Pompano that it had two open bridges. That's how you call them. But there's people that they have fixed bridges, meaning there's no water access. So that it's a problem. And those are the things that will, it will count towards your price, because if you have ocean access, it's a bigger price than if you don't. So yeah, correct. So like in this case, yes, let's see, I want to do a comparable for this property. I'm going to select these, and I'm also going to do into this one, and this one, right? Now, what I always do is I'm going to Google, because I like to see the property that I'm going to be meeting. So to me, Google, it's my best friend. Like I always like to type into the property to see where exactly it is located, if there are anything that may impact the price. And also because I want, when I'm meeting with my seller, be able to know important matters, like for example, are there any schools close by? I don't want to look like, ooh, I don't know where the school is, right? Or I want to know that, for example, are you close to any industrial area that can impact the price, right? Like, for example, in Doral, a lot of people build, there was a community that it was built close to, what's the name? Like a garbage industrial plant or something. And all the people living in there, they were like, they were misled. So they smell the trash. So yeah, so that was in the news and everything. It was bad. So let's say, for example, that's my property. I always like to see where my property backs up. I like to see if they have water. I like to see how close are they to the main streets. See, like for example, I like to see all of that. And then at the same time I'm doing that, after I selected all my comparables, I'm going to click in the map right here. And now I'm going to see my properties, the ones that I selected, to evaluate my comparable. Yes. It's right here. Extreme 11317. So so that's how I do it. Now it's important to add that we have a main street, which is called University Drive. So basically divides the west from the east. And the majority of times, sometimes, people will say, well, but can I take a home from this side and use it as my comparable? Yes, you can, but you want to try to be on one side. You want to try to be, if your home is on the west, use comparables for the west. And if you are in the east, just try to use east, unless you can find anything. Now, the good thing about Coral Springs is that there's so many home options and medium price home options. And it's funny because my office is in Davie. I live in Davie, but I have so many homes in Coral Springs more than Davie. and that's because of the prices are more affordable than Davie. So whenever somebody wants to buy a home in Davie, and they can because it's too much, I take them to Coral Springs. Just a recommendation, guys. It's a great opportunity over there. So let's say those are my comparables, right? So I have all of these, right? Good. I'm going to now go up here and draw a rectangle. You click there. And then we go like this. And then go into results. So now it's showing me a little more because I selected some of the other ones. Now, what I'm going to do next, I'm going to click on the listing. And I'm going to hopefully praying that the listing agent of that particular listing didn't remove their pictures, because that's what they do. Sometimes they have situations where the new buyers said, can you please tell the listing agent to remove the pictures because I don't want my pictures to be all over the place on the internet. And that happens many times. So when you have a situation like that, you will have to go into the public records and different things. So what I like to do is I like to look into the photos just to have an idea.
After you do the rectangle, where do you want to?
Uh, I did, I think I click on the right, like the next, I'll tell you later because yeah. So I like to see into my listings. I like to see on my selections. Wow, that's nice. So that's an open concept, beautiful kitchen, pool home, 2-car garage. It's a great property. So I kind of like to go and have an overview of the listing. It's a large lot. It's a nice one. And then I'm gonna take a look on the next one. This one sold for $650. And I want to add that the exercise that I'm doing, I also like to do it with my sellers. I do this before, okay, before the appointment, because I want to have my own comparables already. I don't want to like start doing the whole thing in front of them. It's just that I repeat the exercise with them so they can see it themselves. And the reason why I do that is because it gets more credibility when you're doing this in front of them, because they feel that you're not coming into the appointment with something that it's favorable to you. Favorable, how do you pronounce that to you? So that's how I do it. So this one, it's kind of not upgrades, carpet, all bedrooms. Well, that's the difference. See, this one sold for $575. This one sold for $690. I don't see the pictures. Okay. Whoa. See, $690. Yeah, because everything is new. See, those floors alone, that's several $1,000s. So if you have a carpet and you have this floor, do you think this one has more value? That's an easy one. Yeah. So it's adds value to a property. And that's the reason why this sold for $690. So those are the comparables that I'm going to look at it, and you have to use them. And this is my listing. When I took this listing, I look into many comparables, like, and the point that it was water view. Now my client has all these blocks. I told her that she needed to open up so we can take a good picture. All this was covered up with these bushes right here. And I told her, you had to open up. And she's like, oh, I don't like it, because no, you have to open up, because how going to sell your property waterfront and everything is blocked? So she has that, but inside, there were not too many upgrades. See? It was a kitchen that it was redone 6 years ago. It was pretty. But the floors were old and the bathrooms, but the house had impact windows, hurricane shutters. The bathrooms were not big deal, but the location, the lot, the water, the impact windows, that's what it truly add up in price. Okay. Heated pool. So that was my listing. Now, once you have your selections, I go back into here, single line, and I'm going to determine a property price. So if I have this one, now also take a look of the square living area. Because if you have a house that it's 1,300 square feet and your comparable is 2,000, it can impact the price. Okay. So in this case, I have almost 1949, 1997, we're good. Let's say your comparable is 2,000 square feet. Then you're good with using this one, this one you might have to deduct. So what I always do is let's say this one sold for $645. I'm going to get the 1949 and I'm sorry, the 645 and divide the 645 by the 1949 to kind of have an idea of the price per square feet. Okay, I always do that. And then I'm going, yes,
What the forms are you using? Is it the comps or is it? Sorry, one of the comps that you have identified,
mhm.
then you're gonna get the price per square foot of what sold.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get the one that is closest to my client's property square feet. So I'm gonna get the highest, the closest one. Let's say my property, it's 2,000 square feet. I'm going to get the highest between my comparables to kind of like have an idea about the square feet. And then I might not use these ones because these are smaller, but that's going to be my guide. That's how I'm gonna guide myself to, let's say if 200 square feet, I'm gonna use that. Then I also going to look into, for example, the lowest price and the highest price. So right now, the highest sold for $690 and the lowest sold for $575. And this is an easy one. Why? Because the $575 had no upgrades. But you also want to look into the remarks. Always read the remarks. Because here is what you're going to know the property have impact windows. How about the roof? Now, this is something very important. If the roof is not anywhere here, it's because either the roof is old, very old, and it's not a selling point. But most of the times nowadays, buyers want to know age of roofs, water heaters, and ACs. And when you take a listing, the first those three things are going to be, if they're new or newer, they're going to be here. So always take a look at that. And if you're taking a listing, always disclose that information on your remarks, because that's every single buyer, every single agent it's caring about. And to be honest, that's all that it's selling nowadays. If you try to sell a house that has a 20-something years old roof, 15 AC, and 15 years water heater, it may be a little difficult unless you sell it at a very right price. Yes?
How many years for insurance can the max, is it 10 years, is it, to get insurance on that property? Like, they can't get insurance if the roof is more than 7 roofs.
You can, well, it depends on the insurance companies. Before, it used to be that you have to do your 4-point
Yeah.
inspection, and then the 4-point inspection needs to reflect that the roof has at least 5 years life expectancy. Now, that could have changed, and that could change anytime, because I remember back in the day when it used to be 1 year. But then a lot of people start doing some fraudulent stuff and putting that it had 1 year left when in fact it didn't have any. But they were friends with the inspectors, and the inspectors were nice, and they would put that. But now, last time I checked, you had to have 5 years life expectancy reported in your 4-point report that is being done during inspection. The 4-point, it's basically that shows the main components on the house: electric, plumbing, roof, and the structure. Yeah. Yeah, so basically that's when they're gonna see, the insurance gonna know how old is everything in the house. So the older everything is in the house, the more price you pay of an insurance every year. So that's why the majority of the buyers are in a hunt for houses that have brand new everything. And this is why a good listing agent is going to put that information here on the remarks. So, and those are the ones that are going to impact your price. So in this one, for example, the one for $575, that's a great price for a house in Coral Springs. But if you look into the comparables, they don't mention anything about a roof. It only has impact windows. So most likely everything was on the old side. So that's what impacts a price of a property. Even though a roof can look very clean and everything, it's not, a roof can be in good shape, but it's all about insurance companies. So nowadays, insurance companies, if a roof, like a tile roof, has more than 20 years, is an issue. And if it's a shingle roof, if it's more than 10 years, is an issue. Used to be 15. It's like every year they reduce it. So that is why when you are into looking for homes, ask those specific questions. Is there not noted on the MLS? Please tell me the age of the roof, water heater, and AC, okay? Another question that you can ask if they know anything about the pipes. So this one, of course, it had carpet, and like we saw before, they're not like upgraded bathrooms, and it's sad. It's sad because I always tell, this is pretty. It's sad, but lately, buyers are too spoiled, and most of the times, they just want everything new. Like, you know, it's incredible. Like, I don't see anything wrong with this kitchen myself, my own opinion. That's why it gave me a little bit hard time, but I had to fight for my seller on my listing. Like, people don't like these kitchens anymore, you know, and they have the audacity to say that this is an old kitchen, even though it has granite and maple cabinets. That's old. And this is the reason why a lot of people paint their kitchens. They paint them white and they sell the house better. Yeah, it's stupid, but you have to defend your listing. When somebody comes to you and say, oh, but that's an old kitchen. No, it's not. It's just a different color. And not everybody likes white kitchens. I have a client that I sold her a house and it was a white kitchen and she tore it out completely. She said, I don't like this. I want cherry wood cabinets. And she put them. So that's what happened. So, but that's how it is nowadays. So this one, then you look into your cheapest comparable and you look into your highest comparable to have an idea, okay? Just to have an idea. And then we're gonna look into this other one that sold for $690. Okay, this is the total upgraded one. And that's your reason why it sold for $690. That's the highest comparable in that community.
Did the other one have a pool?
No. So this is something that also you need to understand. Appraisers are going to give you a price higher when the property has never lived in after the upgrades. Because truly, this is something that you can market as a brand new everything. You know, it's different when your client did the upgrades, but they live in the property and 3 years had passed. They can give you a price, but this one, and I'm telling you because I used to work with what's the name? An investor, and he used to buy all of these homes, and he did exactly this, you know, put brand new floors, kitchen, roof, everything. And I will make a list of everything, and all my homes appraised. And that's what the appraiser told me. The reason why is because no one has used this. Never had someone had lived into this property. So this is considered brand new. So yeah, this property that sold at $690, of course, now is going to help all the homes in the community. But if your property is not a brand new everything, you can tell your client, hey, you know, you're gonna get $690. You know, if they say always do this exercise with your client and say, well, this one got 690 because it's a brand new everything. Do your house compare like this? And they will tell you. I have sellers that have told me, oh my God, that house is beautiful. Oh, my house doesn't look like that. So
That looks like a flip.
it is. It is. So it was listed for crazy 7/20/29. That's crazy. And always look into this bottom part here, because this is the area where sometimes seller contribute with money. Appraisers also going to look into this, because sometimes, you know, they can sell the property for 690. Oh yeah, but they give a $20,000 credit. So the appraiser is going to take that in consideration. So always take a look at this. Okay.
So, one thing,
Yes.
when you're looking at the comps in the neighborhood that your home
Mhm.
is on the lower end. And the comps maybe on the second neighborhood over, or the first neighborhood over,
Mhm.
would have the higher comps.
Well,
How would you manage that?
it depends on the neighborhood. If both of them are in the same, like in the west, you're fine, you know, because it's still considered in the west. And if the home it's same size, same lot, square feet, everything, you can use it as a comparable. You know, it doesn't matter if what do you consider high-end home, because right now we're in Coral Springs, and it's like, you know, it's
All the same.
you're not like in Coral Gables, and you're not comparing to, you know, Miracle Mile or something like that. You are still in the same city, and you know that you have the same lot or similar lot and the same square feet, and on the west. So that's why it helps you. So in this case, you look into your highest and to your lowest. So if your client says, well, I think I will consider that this property is 690. Oh, another thing. You cannot tell somebody how much their property is worth until you don't see it. You have to see your property. Okay. And I always tell the sellers, well, I had to see it, and I had to know what I'm going to be selling, right? So you just declare it. Because you had to, exactly, and you had to compare. So if after seeing the house, let's say the house doesn't have any upgrades, let's say any upgrades, right? And he tells you, well, I want to list it at 690 because this is the most recent comparable. Do you think you're going to have a problem? Yes or no? You are going to have a problem. And that is why you have to try to bring your computer and connect so they can see them, because it doesn't matter. And I have to tell you, the majority of the sellers, sometimes they don't understand, and they think because the most comparable, the comparable sells for 690 in their neighborhood, you have to go with your computer and you have to show them photos so they can see with their own eyes, and tell them, no, I cannot list your property for 690 because you don't have any upgrades. Even though you have the same amount of bedrooms, bath, lot, everything else, the upgrades are going to be taken consideration. And the rule of thumb that I use, based on what appraisals told me, even though that could not be an accurate price, is that appraisers, I mean, tend to think that upgrades could be between 40 and 50,000. That's just an idea, okay? There's nothing in writing, but this is what they take in consideration. You remember when I was telling you that for a pool, they may give you 20,000, even though the pool was 100,000? That's what they do. They do 5,000 for a bathroom. They could do 10,000, 15,000 for a bedroom, like extra bedroom, and they can do overall 40,000 for brand new everything inside a house. Okay, it doesn't matter how much your client spent. If your client spent 200,000, that's his problem, because that's called over improvement. Okay, over improvement. So the appraiser is not going to give you the valuation just because you spend that money. So it's normally like 40,000, 50,000 when a house is, has upgrades. Now, if your house doesn't have upgrades, you know that your comparable, your price will be most likely around this 575. And I'm gonna tell you something. Everybody wants to take listings nowadays because they feel that that's the name of the game. But if you take listings that are overpriced, let me tell you, they are not going to sell. You are not going to sell them. People are not buying homes right now that are overpriced because the interest rate and because even though the news are trying to keep it, there are a lot of areas that are becoming a buyer's market. There are a lot of homes for sale in several areas. Now, if you take a listing in a neighborhood with good schools, you know, with waterfront, with a nice pool, and there's only one house available, your client's house available, there's nothing else, and you know that the houses in that neighborhood sell quick, then you may have an opportunity to go a little high, but not crazy price, because again, it's not going to sell.
Usually in Southfield, like a little bit lower anyway.
It's not going to sell. It's just that people, if you're working, if you are buying a home and you are sitting with your realtor, the first thing that you are going to be doing is talk to your realtor and say, can you look into the comparables? Do you think we're making a reasonable offer? Do you think this is going to, you know, pass appraiser? And if I'm sitting with Daniel here and Daniel's going to buy a home and we look into the comparables and we see that a house with no upgrades sold for 575, and the person is asking 650, you may have a problem. You may have a problem. So you're going to be wasting your appraisal money, $650, and then your inspection, and then you're going to be ending canceling the transaction. So this is how I start with the highest and the lowest comparables. And then I look into the photos and I see how those two compare to my listing, to my client. So if my client has upgrades, I need to evaluate the upgrades. I need to use the scale that I just told you about. If you have a pool, it's about $20,000. If you have a water view, it could be 20, 25,000, depending on the size of the water. If it is a nasty canal full of iguanas, I'm sorry, but you might get 7,000. So that's what I was, it's important to know, okay? There are certain situations where you also have to have in consideration, and that I always do. Before I forget, also go into your county website, because don't rely only in what Matrix say. There are a lot of homes that sell for sale by owner. They don't sell in the MLS. So you have to go into, let's say, for example, in Broward, you're going to click property search. And then you're going to look by an address, right? So let's say I want to, let's say this is my comparable, right? You're going to type your client's property address. Sometimes you have to go back to pick it up. Click in there and hit search. So that is my client's address, right? If you scroll down, it's going to show you the recent sales in the subdivision. So you're going to have all of these, and you have to be sure that these four are on the MLS. And if you can find these four on the MLS, is because obviously they were sold off the MLS. And the appraiser is going to include these in their consideration. So for example, this one sold for 517. And it seems like it's in the same street. I wanna go back here, for example, and just to, out of curiosity, type that information. Sorry, I had to go here and see it. So I don't see it. I don't see it. The last time that it was sold, it was 2019. So it means it was sold off the MLS. So would this be a comparable?
When was it sold?
It was sold in 2024. But it says disqualify sell. So it was probably it was something else happening. So I always like to kind of open up and take a look. And kind of read over this to see why it says disqualify sales. Sometimes it could be that it was giving to a family member, or it was a foreclosure, or it could be something like that. So in situations like that, when you see a comparable selling so low, what the appraisers do is they will try to find more information about it and trying to go into the public records, and they go to the county and they do a research, because this is a very low comparable. And because here says disqualified sale, it could have been a family transferred the property to a family member, a foreclosure or something like that. So appraisers don't take foreclosures in consideration into their reports. They don't.
I'm sorry, Gabby, how did you enter the address again? Because I'm trying to.
You go into bcpa.net and then click here on the left that says property search.
Yeah.
And then you can either enter through here.
Oh, okay.
You can click on any of these.
Yeah.
But I just go into this search bar right here and type my property address. And
Oh, you don't put the city and all of that.
no, yeah. Sometimes you have to play with the system, just like the MLS. When you are on the MLS, you don't have to enter the CT or the ST for street, because the system is not going to pick it up. No one teach you that.
Because it's not picking it up, and I'm like.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, no, it's something about, it throws off the system. I don't know why. So that's why you always want to go into your county to see what's going on there while sold off the MLS. You click there, you see your client's property, scroll down, and then you're going to see recent sales in this subdivision. And that's going to be your comparables. Those will be your off-market comparables. Make sense?
Yes.
Now, another thing that's important when you are listing a property and coming out with a price is to see into your property itself, because, for example, there's something called, I always forget about this thing. This is when you get to a certain age. So, for example, this is a busy street, right? It's called Coral Springs Drive. Very busy, two-way street. And this house is backing up to a busy street. I have mentioned this before, but do you think this house is going to be the same as this house? No? Why?
Because of the noise and the.
So, along my career, I don't know how many times I had gotten these listings that are backing up to a busy street. And my first reaction when I get to the house, I go, oh my goodness, Lord help me. Because it's hard to explain to a seller that when your seller says that their neighbor on 10450 sold for 600,000 and they expect to get 600,000 and they're backing up to a Coral Springs, and you have to be very careful without insulting them. But their house is not going to be selling at the same price. That busy street is going to impact their price very, very much. And not just that, it could sit in the market because a lot of people are not going to want to move in there. Like, for example, Wiles Road. Wild sounds like wild, but it is a wild road. Can you believe there? Do you know how many times people drive here and they have gotten into pools? And that has been all over the news. Oh, yeah. We used to live in a neighborhood and that happened. I saw a helicopter going down and I was like, what is this? And there was a car that went into my neighbor's pool. Oh, yeah, they went through the whole fence and everything.
Yeah, I never wanted to live on a corner or a street like that because I always think, you know, they have to drive into the house.
Oh, yeah, it had happened a lot. Just Google it and you'll see it. So that's the thing that you can expect, even though your client can say, but I live in a very cool cul-de-sac. That's okay. It's the noise and safety reasons, and whoever buying it, when they're going to sell it, they're going to go through the same thing. I have a house in Coral Springs that it was backing up to Wiles, and I would have people going. The house was gorgeous, beautiful house, over 3,000 square feet, pool, everything. People will go in and go out immediately. They will.
They put the walls up. There's big
But
stuff.
still, you still hear the noise, and you hear, and people are like, "What is that?" Oh, people will go in and go out like in 5 minutes, and all the feedback was, "No, my client didn't like it because the busy street. No, unfortunately, it's not for them. No, they didn't like the blah 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 blah." Even though you put impact windows and block the noise, that will hit your price. So that is something that is this one was backing up to the neighbor and this one's backing up to this busy street, the price is not going to be the same. And the difference could be easily 15,000 difference, 15,000, 15 to 18,000 difference. But that's something that you have to keep in consideration. That's why you use Google Map. Now, if the house doesn't back up to a neighbor, but backups to here, do you think this house will be the same price as the one that back up to a neighbor? No, why?
More privacy for the one that has the.
Mm-hmm.
Space.
More privacy, water view, and the neighbor far away. So you can be in your backyard and you don't have your neighbors hearing all your conversations. So that's a different price as well. So when you are working into a situation where you have these 3 type of homes in the same community, you will have to, that's what appraisals do. They deduct prices because of this. It could be the same house, same lot size, same everything. But now this one has something in particular. You don't see it, but I see it.
Right, but I was gonna ask you-
Those are all cables, power lines. Yes, man. So will this impact your price? Yes. I had a listing once that my client's pool was right there, and the power line was right here in the corner, right here in this corner. That was a nightmare to sell. Because people will come in and install the power line. And the first thing in their mind was like, that's gonna fall in my pool and electrocute me. So all of those things you have to keep in consideration when you're taking a listing. When I go to a listing, I just take a look at everything immediately. I have like a radar in my face, in my head, like, But don't say too much when you're on a listing presentation, because, you know, if you show to your seller too much negative comments, the first thing they're gonna say is, she doesn't know, she's not good fit for me because she doesn't believe in my property. So you just assess the territory. That's it. And you can come back later and give your client a price. You don't have to give the property price that there. You can at that very moment, you can say, well, now that I have seen your home, let me go back to my office and check some public records, and I'll get back to you. Okay? But this is why I adore Google Maps. I have a client that is looking into Coral Springs, and she told me specifically, I don't want to live here. This is all industrial. Like, this is like an industrial park, and I don't know, like a plant, like an electrical plant or something. So there's a lot of like buses going down there all the time, and big trucks and everything. And she's like, specifically told me, don't send me any homes in here. I don't want to live there. So see how that impacts your price? I saw another house in Coral Springs that, let's say this is my listing, right? My listing was here, and right across the street, there was a elementary school. It gave me difficulties to sell it, and I had to reduce. So we listed it for $590 because all the comparables said $590. But we ended selling it for $565 because people will go to the house and will try to find parking space, and there was no parking space. And we had to even make all the showings after school hours because all the buses were going through here during school time. And when buyers were coming to see the house, they were like, this is impossible. And I even told my seller, you know, it's an issue that you have the school across the street. People are complaining. Be the other people, be the bad guys. Screenshot feedbacks and send it to your clients. My client, my client, he told me, but I don't mind that. And I go, but you're moving out. You're moving out. And only God knows it, maybe it's for that reason. So all those things are going to impact your price. Tony Martinez, do you remember how that's called? I'm sorry. It's external obsolescence. That's how it's called. Obsolescence. That's what the appraisers use. External obsolescence. So when there are different things like that. Yeah. So when you have a listing that now you're gonna sell it, but you're going to sell it, you will have to go through certain situations that people are going to the house and they are looking at the house, and not if you're not getting offers, it's because of that. But it is an issue. So and this house also, you have to find the right buyer. If a buyer falls in love with a property, and that's what something that you always had to tell your seller, don't discourage your sellers, because that will make them feel bad. And any bad news, let them come from different realtors. Whenever I have a situation where I had a listing that I had to reduce, I go and chase the other agents for feedback all the time. Because people, it's funny because agents drive you crazy when they want to see your listing. And once they disappear, that's because their buyer didn't care about the listing. and they don't send you a feedback. So what I do is I chase those agents and I send them 2, 3 text messages until they actually put something in writing. And what I do is I screenshot that feedback, and that's what I send without the phone number, of course, and send it to my sellers. So they see that the bad news comes from somebody else, not from me. I'm not gonna go and say, oh, but your house is this. Oh, but you know, you have this issue. Because the first thing they're gonna say is, you know what, bye. You're not a good realtor for my house. You don't believe in my home. So let them be, somebody else do that.
It's like inspiring a lot of it's one thing, and I'm lowered the price, not overpriced downtown, and I'm thinking gonna reverse prospect, you know, like, because a lot of people have shared it, you can see go to MLS and you can.
What is the property address of your listing?
24.
Mm-hmm.
or-
How do you spell that?
Northeast.
Northeast 10. Oh, well, I'm gonna tell you exactly what's the issue.
What?
I already see it.
You tell me.
Well, no, it's the situation with your listing is that it's a condo.
Yes,
It's not a townhouse, lot and block
no,
townhouse.
not beautiful.
Right. So what happened is, well, this had been a lot and block, you probably would have sold a long time ago. But the thing is, because right now, everything that's condo and have the word condo into the legal description. And also another way to know is because it has a letter in between the numbers, the folio number, require different ways to sell it. You if you buy a condo, you sometimes have to come up with 25% down payment. 25% down payment, sometimes 20%. And it's not just that the buyer needs to be approved, it's the condominium that needs to be approved. You need to know for sure that you have reserves, you have to have the budget available. And if I were you, I will get it with a lender and share the budget with the lender and the articles of incorporation and the bylaws. Yeah, to see if you can find a lender that can approve that community. And they can tell you if this community you can purchase with, I don't know, 5%, 10%. I don't know. Yeah, it depends on the association for a condo questionnaire. But that is the thing. And condos, anything that has the word condo, it's a condo regulation. So it usually 99.999% of the time, you require at least 20% down or 25% down. If you do 25% down for a condo, is when the questionnaire is only 10 questions, I believe, or 20. And I think it's longer questionnaire if it's 20% down. So the less down payment, the large the questionnaire. That's what sometimes if you have a client, you say, can you put a little more? Can you put another 5%? That way the questionnaire is going to be shorter. Yeah. So it's better.
You can rent it out from day one.
Yeah, but
Minimum 90 days, one time.
right. But I had a situation with a gorgeous townhouse in Nova and give me such a hard time. The only way that I was able to sell it was cash.
Yeah.
That's it. Because
I almost had it sold from an investor out in LA, but she, at the last second, she went with another one that wasn't as nice in the same community, so it was a condo also. But it already had, the tenants had just renewed their lease, so that they. So it's like, and mine has a different situation. Mine has owners that are willing to stay for a year, but there's something else involved, so it's a little shaky. So it got bird in hand, so at the last minute she went with that. It's the same price.
yeah.
Upgraded. It's nice.
Right. I would, if I were you, I would do that. Because it's important that if you are able to actually get a hold of a lender that can pre-approve you, approve your community. So you can actually promote the listing, that it can be bought with a 5%, 10%, and put that on the remarks.
It's very rare, isn't
It's rare, but I mean,
it? Like I've heard of a condo FHA, like once in a.
no, that I won't even, no. No, you have a lot of upgrades. I mean, okay, yeah, yeah, yes.
After you completed, you know, all of the comps, and you have that range, you're taking the low price, first one for the, you know, the, everything.
Uh-huh,
And you come up with a recommended price then.
mm-hmm.
You share that with your seller. What if they still wanna go higher?
I mean, that doesn't surprise me,
Yeah.
but I always tell them, I always make myself clear, and I said, it's my job as your realtor to tell you that this is the property, a price that I recommended.
Okay.
If we don't get showings, which is probably potentially what's gonna happen, you agree that we are going to reduce the price, at least, I don't know, every, after, you can say, well, we're gonna see what happens for the first 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Now, granted, this is a different market.
Right.
This is not 2021 where, you know, the interest rate was 2%.
Yeah.
So everything's taking longer to sell.
Yeah.
This is why, don't take a listing, and that's I'm gonna teach on the other one. Don't take a listing for 3 months. No, if somebody says, no, well, I just wanna take a listing for, no. No, when somebody comes to me and says, no, no, I'm not gonna waste my time, because especially if they're gonna say, well, my recommendation is 550. Let's list it at 590. No, I'm gonna take a 1-year listing. You know, unless you allow me to, if we don't get any showings the first 2 weeks, or after 30 days, we're gonna reduce 10,000, or we're gonna reduce 5,000 every week, or I'm sorry, no, every 2 weeks, 5,000. Because you're gonna be wasting your time.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, just a couple of things, and next week, we're actually gonna be talking about the actual listing presentation. So if you haven't registered for that, we're calling it the Power Hour. So how you could use the LPT marketing tools in the presentation, because there's different components to the listing, right? One of them is pricing it correctly.
Yeah.
The other thing is to go in with a presentation that's gonna come as close to guaranteeing you walking out with the listing as possible. And that's, all of it works together. But just to conclude what Gabby was saying about pricing, I think this is probably the most nerve-wracking part for agents, because all of a sudden you're taking on this role as appraisers, and let's face it, you're not. What we're doing is not an appraisal. It's a valuation. It's a market analysis and all that. And I think what happens is we go in feeling insecure about the pricing, and then the owners say, "But mine is worth more than that," and we just don't really have a good comeback to that.
Right.
And this is where you're going to have to maybe start practicing with each other or practicing in the mirror, because most agents are going to cave. Most agents, when the seller says, "But I want to list it for more," you're going to cave. "Oh, I want to pay less commission," you're going to cave. You don't hold your ground. And there's different ways. I've always been able to, and you know me, I'm the kind of person that says you need to know what to say, how to say it, when to say it. And I've been very direct with people. I'm more direct because Gabby and I will talk about this, I mean, I think she's the best realtor in the world, but sometimes I'll go to her and say, but why did you do that? And I'm risking my life at that point, right? Because I don't know if this crazy woman is going to slice me at that point. But I say, but why'd you take that listing? Well, because I thought, and then I just kind of usually like walk away because I know my life might be in danger at that point. But if she pursues it, I go, well, what do you mean? I go, you knew it was overpriced. Why'd you do it? Well, I thought this. I go, well, you got yourself into this. What happens is everyone is desperate for a listing, and you think you accomplished a great thing.
Mhm.
And you're not in the business of listing properties. You're in the listing business of selling and closing. And more hearts have been broken through listings that don't sell than dating apps, because that's the reality of it. So when somebody says, well, my house is worth more, I says, okay, I'm a potential buyer. Sell me. tell me why your house is worth more than this. And if you can sell me, I'm with you,
Mhm.
you know? And it's, I'm not being a jerk. I'm like, okay, all right, great. And I have fun with people. I say, you know, so you think your house is worth more than this? I go, yeah. Well, you know what? It's okay to want things. I want to sell it for more. Look, I wanted to be 6'2". Look at me. I'm 5'8" on a good day. And you can have fun with people and stuff like that. Like Gabi said, the higher the price, the longer the listing. And you know something a lot of top agents do that I see very few agents do here? They already get the seller to agree in advance to price reductions at a certain date. In other words, built into the listing agreement, you say, if we hasn't sold until this date, it goes down here, and then this date, and this date, and this date. So it's already pre-approved. It's already pre-approved. So you don't have to go back to them and say, hey, look, you know, I think we should lower it by $10,000. You tell them, look, as per the agreement and the timeline that we agreed upon, I've lowered it $10,000 in the additional remarks. Okay, or it can actually be something that you attach to it and as part of your marketing plan. But if you don't come across at the very beginning as being the sound of reason, you're going to lose that battle. The other thing that is not being used anywhere near enough is just getting the sellers to pay for an appraisal. So if you come in with your recommendation, right, and they're not agreeing with it, and let's face it, you know, if it's a $400,000, $500,000 listing, you may have a tougher time, but you know, there are not many of those around. If it's a higher price listing, paying $500 or $600 for an appraisal, is well within their ability to do so. And what you could do is you could reach out to several different appraisers and you can say, look, I'm going to start incorporating into my presentation that sellers should do a pre-listing appraisal. And what do you normally charge? Well, I charge this. I go, what if I gave you volume? Okay. And then now what you're doing is say, listen, so we're going to do this. You have your opinion of the price, and I have my opinion of the price. And we're all entitled to our own opinions. So why don't we do this? Why don't we go ahead and put the opinions aside and go with facts? And the closest thing to facts I can think of in this area is to have an appraiser value your property. Okay? They have no interest whatsoever. You know, and let's go with what they have to say. Yeah, it's kind of like saying, because they could argue you just want to list it because you want to get paid. I go, you want to get more because you need to get more. So let's get someone that has no dog in the fight to go ahead and value it. And say, well, that's how much is that going to cost me? Well, it's going to cost you. I mean, I don't look at it as a cost. I look at it as an investment. Because if you invest $500 or $600 and they substantiate your position, then you just netted more. And if they substantiate my position, you actually net more because you waste less time having the property on the market. So let's just go and bring it in. And you know, you could do so many things. They say, well, listen, I don't know, but it's $500 or $600. Look, I tell you what, is that the only thing that's stopping you right now from listing with me and getting going? Yeah, I tell you what, when we sell and close, I'll rebate that back to you. That's it. Win, 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 win for everyone involved.
I have two appraisers that I recommend. The reason behind that is because both of them come to the office and yeah, I can give you that information. One has been out of appraiser for 45 years and the other one like 20 something.
Awesome.
Yeah.
My last question.
Mhm.
Do you do, with this comp that you run, do you share it with them physically? Like equally?
Whenever I have a listing presentation and it's on a house that, of course, you know, I'm gonna be meeting with the sellers, I come with my own comparables. I come on print. And then I do the exercise with them, how I got to those comparables.
Right. But
So,
just in front of them, not
but I-
necessarily.
Yeah, sometimes I do it in front of them. So and then I show it to them. I don't like, I mean, I know that there's RPR and all of those, but to me, RPR is like a lottery quick pick. It doesn't really, you have to go in and you have to kind of like customize it.
Right,
But to me, it's like I'm a little old school, so I do it this way.
yes.
I do it this way from the MLS, and then I use the Google Maps, and I go back and forth, back and forth. I like to take my time. I don't,
Right,
like RPR throws in too much.
too much stuff.
Yeah, like, and sometimes the report's like 45, 50 pages. Who's gonna read that? Come on.
The seller's next.
Nobody has time to read now.
The seller's next sheet, that the estimate.
That, yeah, that you can do in New World Title, the New World Title app.
Yes.
You can get the net sheet. Yes. Okay. So let's go back. It's I'll tell you later.
Yes.
So now we're gonna go back into the exclusive right of sale listing agreement. And I wanna point something out real quick. Whenever you're looking into a form, every single Florida Realtors form can be easily identified and found with the name of the form. If you scroll down into the bottom of the page, left corner, you're gonna see the name of the form and the form when the last time it was updated. So be sure that whenever you are working with a form, it's the most current one. I saw last year a lot of people using an as-is contract that it said 2017 here. No, no, no. Always use the ones that are like out most update 2024. And this one, the form C, is usually the name exclusive right sale ERS 20, because that's the version, the last version 20, and the TB for transaction broker. We are a transaction broker office. So this is the
Abby.
form that we need to use. Yes?
Gabby, I can see your screen. It's
Really?
frozen yes, it's
Okay.
frozen the
Okay. Say again. Sorry. Never mind, peoples. Never mind. Okay. Can you see it now? Thank you for letting me know. Thank you.
yes, I see it now.
Oh, thank you. You're a lifesaver, Lourdes. Right here. Here is your form. Every single form has exclusive right to sell. So always use the one that is the most current one with the year. Okay, and this is the name of the form. And 20 is because that's the most recent version. And the TB is for the transaction broker. So this is the form. So always look into the year. So now the exclusive exclusive right of sale listing agreement. It changed last year because the transparency about commissions totally changed. NAR implemented this, and then the Florida Realtors. So what it truly changed in this document is this section right here. This one, number 10. This one. Why? Because a number 10 is basically telling, you are asking your seller if they're going to be paying commission, and there you're also asking them authorization for you to pay the commission to whoever brings a buyer, to the other agent that brings a buyer. This section right here was not part of the previous listing agreement versions. And when you are filling this out, note this right here that says, broker commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. So you are not allowed to use nothing that says, well, the standard commission is, or the commissions used by other agents are. You're not allowed to use that, because then you're going against with what the new law says. There are not standard commissions. 6%, 7%, 5%, whatever, it's not standard. It could be basically whatever the seller wants to pay. Okay? So what can you say where you're meeting with a listing agent? Well, what you can say is my fee is 5%. My fee is 6%. And from that, do you authorize me to share something with a buyer's agent? Okay, well, if your seller says, okay, so your fee is 5%, right? You're gonna put that 5% here on line 109. You put your 5% there. And then if you have a transaction fee, which is in our case is $5.95, we put $5.95 there, right? But then going back to the section right here, here is where it becomes complicated. Pay attention, because these two are the ones that are associated with the compensation forms that are going to be sent to you by the buyer's agent. Whoever brings the buyer will need to send you a compensation form. So let's say, for example, you are working with a buyer and you're sending an offer. You need to send a compensation form to make your commission official. If you don't send that form, your client can buy the house. You're not getting paid. That's it. Because commissions are not part of the contract. Commissions are in place and pay if you send your assets contract with your compensation form. But before that, you need to be sure, how is that compensation be paid to you? Is the seller going to pay the buyer's agent at closing? Or is the seller going to pay the listing broker, and the listing broker is going to pay the buyer's broker, right? So in this case, this is why when you're meeting with a seller, you need to ask them. Now, the way that we were doing business, it was when the seller authorizes broker to offer compensation to buyer's broker. So let's say it will be letter A, if I'm not mistaken. It will be, and it's a little confusing. It could be a little confusing. So
Exactly, the letter A is the way it was before all of this came along.
Exactly. Exactly. But the difference is that this paragraph was not in this document before. So if the seller says, that's okay, I pay you, and then from what I pay you, you pay the buyer's agent. The same way we have been doing for forever, right? So then you are going to select letter A. You're gonna click this box, okay? And then you're gonna put here the percentage that you are sharing with the other agent. 2.5, 3%, whatever you want. You can pay yourself 4 and pay the other part 2. Another thing, a lot of people complain, why I'm not getting the same, the SUV 50 and 50. There's no such thing. You can select whatever you do. I had an agent that listed an amazing property with a crazy price that I told him, you're going to sell that house in one day. And he said, you think so? Oh, yeah. Pay yourself 4. Pay the buyer's agent too. Do you think I'm going to get in trouble? No, just disclose it to your seller. He got like 15 offers and he paid himself 4%. You can do that. It's not mandatory. That has to be equal. So whenever you are in a situation like that, don't complain to the listing agent. Just do the same whenever you have an opportunity. Just do the same. But yes, you can, because it's your fee. Remember, the seller is paying you. You are the one that are choosing, with the blessings of the seller, how much are going to be paying the buyer's agent. And at the end of the day, if that house is the house of your dreams of your buyer, just be happy. You know, if they're paying 2%, take the 2% and don't complain. You know, I sold a house 1%. You know, and the buy, yeah, and the listing agent pay himself 4. Yeah, okay, but you know what? It is what it is. Yeah. Well, you have to be happy with and you have to get what your clients want. So check the box and put the percentage right here. Okay. So I wanted to address this part because this is the most part that the agents get in trouble with, that they don't know which to select. So it will be letter A. Now, in the case that it will be the other one, well, that will be because the seller says something like, no, from the closing, I'm just gonna pay $3,000 to a buyer's agent. And this is when you select the other box. Now, I've seen a couple of times with seller says, nope, I'm not gonna pay anything to the buyer's agent. I'm gonna pay you 3, and I don't wanna pay anything to anybody. Tell the buyer to bring their own money and pay their agent himself. So sadly, you will have to select box number C. Okay.
That hard to financing this like I have.
So now what I have seen in a lot of cases is that I see sellers saying that, oh no, I'm going to do whatever,
Credit closing.
yeah, or something like that, but they're like, no, I'm not gonna pay anything to the buyer's agent. But after they see that their home is not being shown, they tend to change that. Now, if they would have been in place back in 2021, it would have been very successful, but you know, because everything's sold no matter what. That's why people start going up with the 1% back in the day. Okay, so that was important that I want you guys to see. Now, this has to do with these 2 forms, and you all have to become familiar with those 2 forms. Okay. Again, if you scroll down, you're gonna see that each form has their own name. This is the CABB-1. You need to know that by memory, because you're not gonna say compensation agreement, seller, blah, 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 blah. No, just learn the initials. The CABB-1 or the other one that it's called CASB-1. So these are the people in Zoom seeing these forms that I'm sharing? Okay. So basically, these are the forms that whenever you're submitting an access contract, you must send one of these forms. But for you to be sure that what form you're sending, you need to ask the listing agent. How is the seller going to pay commission? First of all, is the seller paying commission? Yes. Okay, how much is the seller paying? Oh, well, 2%. Okay. Is this going to be that he's paying me directly at closing, or it's that he's paying you and you're going to pay me? If they say, well, they are going to be paying me and I'm going to pay you. Okay, so I'm going to send you the CABB-1 form, right? Yes. And that's what you attach to your access contract. Don't send it later. Don't send them before. Send it together with the access contract to make it official. Okay. Now, for the exclusive listing agreement, I'm just gonna go over real quick this part here. Seller, the name of your seller. If it always verify the Broward County Appraisal, the Miami property search, how many sellers are in the property. And try that whenever you have a listing presentation to have everybody there, everybody that's a seller. And if you have 3 sellers, the 3 names must be here. Broker, the broker is not Extreme by LPT Realty, it's LPT Realty LLC. Number 6, line number 6, please, never forget to put a starting and then termination date of this contract. Otherwise, any attorney can argue and make your listing agreement void, null and void. Correct, everybody needs to sign the listing agreement. If you have four sellers, poor Rosie Pacheco, she had a listing where she has 8 sellers, 8 siblings. And she was running out of space putting in here all the 8 sellers. Yeah, it's crazy. Property address,
Was it a family, like inherited the house?
right, yes. Here you put the property address, personal property, if the property it's occupied or not by a tenant. You keep scrolling down.
Gabby,
Yes,
I want to make sure you say that not put the date and beginning and end.
you always
of the
put the
date.
dates, when that contract it's being taken.
Oh, you have to. Okay.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you don't have, if you leave this blank, you are in trouble because that's not considered legal. And any attorney can argue that you never put a starting date and a termination date. So always put the day that your client is signing and the day is expiring. Now, a little trick, if you're taking a listing and for some reason your client says, well, I need to paint the house and I need to declutter, and I think I don't want you to put the listing on the MLS at least for 20 days. And if you're taking a 6-month listing, you are going to take a 6-month and 20 days listing. Because if you're telling them that you're taking a listing for 6 months and they're going to take almost a month for you, you're losing a month. So no way. Okay, so scrolling down, property price, financing terms, select all applicable. If it is a condo, don't select FHA because 99% of the times it's not gonna be, no, exactly, thank you. No VA, no FHA.
It's cash conventional.
Cash and conventional for condos and for single family homes, cash, conventional, VA, and FHA. Unless the property has some issues.
Okay, how do you know if a house is FHA?
Well, if
Okay.
a house that poses a risk for a buyer cannot be sold FHA. For example, if the house has like a big hole in the ceiling, if the roof is leaking, if there are roots coming into the foundation of the house, that's not going to be able, and your seller says, I'm sorry, but I want to sell it as is. I'm not going to fix anything. I'm selling it truly as is. Then you explain to the other agents, I cannot sell it FHA because you're going to get phone calls from
You
agents.
should get a seller's disclosure too.
Yeah, no, but you disclose that on the broker remarks. You say this property cannot be sold FHA because property has issues. And that's why you have to explain. Because you cannot do something like your seller will say, well, I don't want FHA buyers. That's discriminatory. So it could be only if there is a risk with the property. There's an issue with the property. Yeah, so it's that you have to, unless I don't know how many phone calls I receive from agents upset. Why is not FHA? And I had to tell them, well, because the house is leaking all over the place. And my client has tarps in the roof. So it's not going to fly. And you can. And my client is not going to fix them. The property is sold as is. Assumption of mortgage. This could be very good nowadays. Because if your seller, for example, has a mortgage
3%.
3%, you know, it could work very well, right? So it's in,
How does that, I've never done that.
I never done that
So, like,
either.
It's right now. I have to go to left on it and I could. offer-
Right, if you have, yeah, of course.
I mean, my mortgage is from 2016, it's like 2.9 or something.
Yeah, if you have if your seller has a 2.5 interest rate, then there could be a summa mortgage.
So then the new person has to apply to my bank.
That's a lender question.
Yeah.
Because, yeah, but they could take advantage of that. Okay, we scroll down here, basically broker obligations, multiple listing services, the things you're gonna be doing after putting the property on the MLS. The broker authority, the seller authorized me to do all this, right? Display the property on the internet, accept the address, never put a check mark there. Unless your client says, well, you know what, I'm a police person or, you know, a sheriff or something, I don't want my address online. So then you check this box. Seller does not authorize broker to display the property on the MLS. Never check that because probably you're not gonna sell it. We scroll down. If they allow a lockbox in their property, then you check that box. And I like to check this one that says withhold all offers once seller accepts a contract, just because, you know, you kept getting offers, but you're already working with one offer.
Hey, Gabby?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I also strongly recommend you put a check mark by withhold of verbal offers. You're
Okay,
gonna get a lot of investors, quote unquote, that say, well, will they take $400,000 on an $800,000 house? And they're not even wanting to write an offer. They just want you to run it by them. And you said, no, you know, my seller does not allow verbal offers. You want something, you have to write it up. Because you have to submit all offers unless it's indicated here.
mm-hmm.
So for your protection, you put a check mark by both of those.
Okay, makes sense. These two boxes, it's in reference to, for example, when you see a listing, have you seen that sometimes it says, you go into Zillow and it says like an estimate, sestimate? Well, I like to, if I'm taking a listing that it's a little overpriced, I might unplug, make them check this box, because I don't want, you know, that's my listing is gonna be going for sale for $590 and showing on Zillow for $590, and then the estimate says $545, because that's gonna hurt me. So in those cases, you use that. Seller's obligations, you know, you need to read that. They need to tell you if they have a mortgage, how many mortgages, if there are a lien on the property, anything that it could be an issue with the property. The seller needs to disclose to you, because you will need to disclose those things to the potential buyer. Now, a lot of people talk about the seller's disclosure that sellers filled out. In Florida, it's not mandatory, a seller's disclosure, okay? Now, when I meet with a seller, what I always like to do is I always tell them, look, this is an additional layer of protection for you. So I think it's a good idea, you would like to be protected, that you can disclose everything you know. So we give it to the buyer, because the buyer is going to sign that document as well, right? So they know the condition that they're receiving the property. And I like to have those in place, unless it's an investor, because the investor doesn't know anything about the property, supposedly, right? Supposedly. But again, when you ask for the seller's disclosure, if you come across with a situation where the listing agent says, no, we don't have seller's disclosure, don't fight it. Because again, it's not mandatory in the state of Florida.
Okay.
So Yes,
Gabby, just to add to that, it's not, the form is not mandatory, but disclosure of any material facts affecting the property is mandatory.
correct. That's what,
So,
it's here. It's
so
here.
it's kind of like, so why wouldn't you, if you have to disclose it anyway,
Mhm,
why wouldn't you just use this form to
right.
disclose it?
Yeah, that's what I was mentioning. I think it was somewhere in here. There's a section here that mentions that they need
Yeah,
to.
it's usually the flippers that are not going to want to do it because they've never lived in the property and everything else.
Yeah, but that's what they say after they tear down the property, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know anything about the property. Yeah, right here. See this section that says, including all facts that materially affect the property value. So if the seller tells you that there are polybutylene pipes, you had to disclose. If you know that there were termites, you had to disclose.
Yeah. And it says, and are not readily observable. Okay, so if there's mold behind the sofa, okay, they have to disclose that because the buyer walking in is not going to see the mold. Even the inspector is not going to think, okay, let's pull the sofa out.
Mhm.
So they have to disclose anything that can materially affect the value of the property, especially the ones that are not readily observable.
That's correct. And I just like to put a quick sample. Years ago, I sold a townhouse, and that's true what Tony says. The inspectors don't move anything. They don't move rugs. They don't move sofas. They don't move anything. My clients purchased a townhouse that had a big rug in the middle of the living room. I didn't know better. That was years ago. And the floor was totally messed up. There was a hole under that rug. So, we realized afterwards, it was kind of like a little late, right? During the walkthrough. And it was a big fuss that I had to act, gone to, to the listing agent. But that's why my recommendation would be whenever you are in a situation like that, that you are with the inspector, I'm not going to ask you to move the hutch, but if you see a rug or you see something suspicious on the floor, move it. Try to review it because, that's what people do, They sometimes they hide stuff or they cover it up. So let's go to the next line, number 8. Here's where you're going to put your 5%, 6%, 7%, your transaction fee.
Yeah. Gabby, can I add something on that you may not agree with me on, but I think it's something that needs to be brought up.
That's okay. I agree with you.
The biggest issue that happened with the lawsuit is the fact that sellers were, I guess, led to believe that they had to pay the commission for the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And now it is upon us to make it very, very crystal clear that is not required. So my concern is if we walk in and they say, okay, so what's this going to cost me? And you say, well, my fee is 5, my fee is 6. You are building in the amount for the other side.
Okay.
And that can really come back and bite you. And you know what? So my thinking is, okay, let's discuss fees. Let's discuss my aspect of it, because I will be representing you as your listing agent for everything that I've shown you that I'm going to do to assist you with the entire process. My fee is only 3%. Now, let's discuss compensating the other side. Legally, you don't have to. Logically, you probably should. Because at the end of the day, if you are not willing to compensate them, it's going to fall on the buyer. And buyers typically don't have the discretionary money sitting around. So given the fact that you want to sell your home, you want to have as many people see it as possible, so you can generate as many offers as possible, I highly recommend that you offer compensation to the other side. And so how much is that going to be? Well, it's completely up to you, but I would recommend to make it no less than what you're offering me so that they are incentivized. And then at that point, whatever amount that's agreed upon, then you break it up into the two sections. You have the compensation for your side and the compensation for the other side. Does that make sense, how I explained that?
No, it makes sense.
Yeah. Now, because again, we haven't heard a lot about this, but you never hear a lot about this until people are sued. And my concern is that there's a lot of agents running around out there that really have no clue as to how this changed. And they're just going in there doing listing presentations like they always did. And that can significantly come back to bite you later on. Now, I see Latoya posted a question. I'm not sure if I understand. For price, should we use a range? If you're talking about the listing price, it's not a range. A listing price, it must be a definitive specific amount that you're listing it for.
Okay.
Okay, so the recording is going to stop. You guys only put it for an hour or something? I don't think so. But supposed to continue. Okay, Gabby, I'm sorry. That's all I had to add.
Okay, so how do I change that? Thank you, Melissa. I didn't even notice. So can I change that or no?
Who's logged in as a host? This is on your account, right?
I think it's me. I don't know how to do this. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
it's under Gabby's account.
Ay, 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 ay. Okay, this is too stressful. Tony, continue talking while I'm doing this.
All right, guys, any additional questions on what we've covered so far?
I have a question. Excuse me. Is it okay to, if you're representing a buyer and prior to the showing, you've already verified the compensation the seller is willing to offer to the buyer's agent, buyer submits an offer. Is it okay for us to withhold the offer until we receive the signed compensation agreement from the other side?
Okay, so wait a minute. You're back up a little bit because I had the volume turned down. Who are you representing in this scenario?
Buyer.
Okay, so you're representing the buyer, okay? And you communicated ahead of time with the listing agent and you asked how much is the compensation and they said X amount, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so then what you do is you prepare the offer along with the compensation, and there's also an addendum in there as well that says that they need to have that signed and back to you for it to continue on as a valid contract.
Okay.
So there is protection built into that, but that's a different class because that's on the buyer side of it. But those issues came up. So now what you can do is protect yourself by saying, look, I'm submitting this. But if your seller signs the offer and within 3 days, the compensation agreement has not come back, then it gives the buyer the option to walk away or the buyer pays you. What do you think the buyer is going to do? So there is protection built in by using that form.
Okay,
So yeah, you can't withhold the offer until they send you the compensation. They go hand in hand.
So in real time, what happened is everything was agreed upon. And when I sent all of the documents to the other side, the seller ultimately, when I started inquiring by day 2, why hadn't I received the compensation agreement back? Then the listing agent called to let me know the seller had decided that she should no longer pay the original agreed percentage based on my
Okay.
buyer offering a lower price than what she was asking. So all of the documents were sent. They just returned everything except for the compensation.
Okay, so I can see that where that could happen. So here's what your option is at that point. You go back to your buyer and say, I don't have good news. They did this. And says, so what does that mean? Well, that means that based on the agreement you signed with me, compensation to me now falls on you. Well, I don't have it. I can't pay it. What do? Well, let's use that as leverage to go back to the seller and say, either you honor what you originally said, or they're going to back out of the contract. Because if it's within a day or two, you're within the inspection period anyway, so you're protected. But the form that we now use has that language already built in. So that would have been the options that are available to your buyer.
Like if you do agree to a lower price, then you have to use this.
Mm-hmm.
There's two of them.
Yeah,
You use MCA 1 or MCA 2.
that's depending on the form that you're using. This is relevant to this part over here.
Gabby, if you want to pull up the compensation agreement to see if that's the one that's got the built-in language that says if it's not returned by X amount of days, or it may be the addendum that they created for that,
What addendum?
to do exactly that, to protect the go all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so that's not this one. Let me see if I can find it. Did you
This
resolve
one?
the issue?
Yeah,
Okay, so let me see if I can find that agreement we talked about.
okay. In the meantime, while Tony is looking into the form, here's basically the broker relationship. Disclosing how you're going to deal with your customer. It's basically telling them that you are going to present all offers, that you are going to disclose any materials, facts in the property. Number 12, conditional termination. I have to tell you that I don't recommend you guys to leave this blank or leave it 0. You must put something in here, please. You can't just leave it blank, especially if you're taking a listing where you are going to be spending money, in videos and photos and different things. At least, guys, get that money back if they're canceling the listing. So the lowest that I think I will put here, it's $500 at least. But I think the right amount should be at least $1,000. But again, when I see this blank, and some of you, have done so many different things for sale signs and photos and video and all of that. And after your client is like, oh, well, you know what? I need to cancel. I don't want to I don't like you and blah, blah, blah. And then what? You end it like that? No, put 500 and you have to explain to your seller, hey, I'm going to be doing pictures. I'm going to be doing photos, professional photography. I'm going to be doing some promos and that costs money. So I'd never encounter an issue with sellers. They're always like, no, I understand, of course. And I put something in there. Dispute resolution. It's a very long paragraph, but to me, it's basically, this is the most important part. That it basically, if you get into dispute resolution, like your seller sues you and you go to court or something, it's basically saying that each party is going to pay in their own fees, attorney's fees and everything else. Okay. And there's some other things about
Hey,
that.
Gabby, I found that form.
Okay.
It's called the Buyer Broker Compensation Contingency Addendum.
Okay.
So if you want to pull up that form, it's BB.
Wait. I'm going back to that one.
It's under Florida Interactive. I went ahead and put comp and it came up. It's BBC CA-1.
Okay, let me share. Okay, so I'm going into Dalup any forms that you want to take a look at it or you want to find, go into templates. And then you're gonna scroll down and see here to the left, there are different areas and forms that you can find. Like if you're looking into commission forms, and maybe here you think?
No, Florida Interactive, those commission forms are just mostly LPT.
Okay, I updated the other day, but
Florida Interactive forms, right there.
Florida Interactive form copy or the
No,
other?
no, just come down, you passed it, Florida Interactive
Right here,
forms, right
okay.
on, right there.
Uh-huh. And then
Now,
what's the name?
do a search, put comp in there,
Like
all
that?
right? There it is, the first one.
Okay. Mm-hmm. This
Okay,
one?
so stop right there. So this is exactly it. This is a way of protecting. You send this along with the compensation and the offer. And it says this contract is contingent upon check one, seller's broker and buyer broker, or seller and buyer broker executing compensation agreement. So which one? Is it the seller's broker that's paying, or is it the seller that's paying? Okay. And then you put X amount of days. Well, I wouldn't, if it's blank, it's 3 days. And basically it says that if it's not done, okay, the buyer can terminate by delivering termination, and the deposit must be refunded to the buyer. If buyer fails to timely deliver said written notice to seller, this contingency shall have no further effect or force. What does that mean? And now falls back to the buyer to pay you. So yeah, on day one, day two, you're saying, hold on a second, I haven't received this. Is there a problem? And then come after the third day, and then so it says here, once you know, then they have 3 days. So let's say you gave them 3 days to send you the form. It's now day 3. You don't have it. Your buyer has 3 days to cancel or move forward. And by moving forward, I mean either you work for free or you enforce what they should have signed, which is a buyer broker compensation to you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's making official basically, if you don't receive your compensation agreement form, the CA, B1 or the other one, then the contract gets terminated.
But the buyer has to provide a written termination. In other words, it's not automatically terminated.
Mm-hmm.
The buyer must inform them, hey, as per this, we're backing out.
So it says written notice. So it could be an email.
I wouldn't do it in an email. I would go ahead and just and just do a cancellation notice.
Release. Okay. Mm-hmm. See how they're putting now this everywhere in every single document. Broker commissions are not set by law and are fully negotiable. That phrase is, you're going to see it like several times in several documents, because that's like a reminder, especially to the sellers, that no agent can come and say, well, my commission is and my fee is, or whatever. So, okay. So I'm gonna add this form to the commission form so the agents can have it available. Tony.
Yeah, and also there's also the concession one, there's all that. I think we probably need to do another training when it comes to the buyer side forms. So we need to get that. We did that before when they first came out, but I think a refresher is needed.
Okay. Okay. So are we good? I mean, are there any other questions? We just finished.
You covered the listing agreement already, all 5 pages?
I did.
Okay.
So here are the templates. So I'm gonna do, I have a master Dotloop account, guys, so I can see your loops, and whenever you want me to review a document, just let me know the address and I can go as you guys and help you from there, okay? You don't have to send me a contract by email or anything like that anymore. So I can, and this is where I add all the documents for you to have access. So the other day I was like building this. And I put all the buyer broker agreements forms in there for you to easy find them. So it's called buyer broker. And then I created the listing documents and commercial forms, all of these. I even did the one that says mandatory seller forms and the mandatory buyer forms. So you don't have to running around and looking for the these are templates that we created. And additional forms, you know, for rentals are also here. Rental questionnaire, rental application, the compensation agreement, because, oh, that's also, if you're working a rental, you need to send this one. There's also one for rentals. So you need to send this with your offer, your rental offer. Otherwise, you're not gonna get paid. And the landlord can basically wash their hands and not pay anything, because now there's no MLS that you can prove that they're actually were paying commission. And that form, it was added to the templates that it's called the rental docs, rental forms right here. Okay, yes. So that's it, guys. It's 12:43. We're ending our class. I just want to say thank you to everybody that came to the office and Tony's input and all of your questions in Zoom. We're gonna start recording now.